Hello guys! Today we're going to do an in-depth analysis of my new bike, the Cube Lightning Aero, and we're going to compare it to my old road bike, the Cube Attain. So this is going to be a longer video, so just kick back and relax and listen to the video. I'm going to do this one in English, even though I'm German, but I think the Cube Lightning has such a big fan base all over the world. I've seen people in Spain who talk about the bike, so that I decided to do this in English, so everybody can understand, hopefully. So the order of priorities here is going to be, this is not scripted, I'm just going to talk about how I feel about the bike, about my experience with the bike. And I'm going to start with the things that I think matter the most, which would be, in my personal opinion, the brakes. So if you take a look at the bikes that I have, to give you a little bit of a perspective, my first road bike, it was a Cube Attain. I bought it in 2020, I think. And it cost €1,000 back then. About the specs from the bike is a aluminium road bike with a carbon fiber fork. It has Shimano Tiagra group set, but the brakes are mechanical TPR Spire. Yeah, so that's pretty much for the specs. It weighs 10 kilograms and is an endurance class bike. After about 3 years of riding it, 2 or 3 years of riding it, something like that, I upgraded the handlebars to a more aerodynamical handlebar set, which also allowed me to ride in the drops much more comfortably. And I also changed out the wheels, which the stock wheels are alloy slim profile wheels, not aero wheels. I exchanged them for carbon fiber aero wheels. Don't ask me what brand they are or what manufacturer. They are from China, cheap €600 carbon fiber disc wheels, not disc wheels, but deeper aero wheels. I'm pretty happy with them. I also changed out the cassette. It originally came with a pretty big cassette in the rear, I think 34 or something like that, and I exchanged it for a 28 cassette to give me more finer differentiation between the gears. And yeah, that's pretty much that bike. I rode that bike for now around 16,000 kilometers. But a month ago I got my new road bike, which is a Cube Lightning Aero in Team Line color. That bike has a bit better specs, or actually much more powerful specs. It comes with an Ultegra group set. It has an included power meter, which my Cube Attain also has a power meter, which I added. So here price, if we talk price, we are comparing a €5,300 bicycle with a around €2,000 bicycle. 2,100 maybe, if you include the price of the bike with all the upgrades. I'm also using, for a bike computer, I'm using the Karoo Hammerhead 2, which is going to be important later, why I talk about that. Or basically it's important because you have the you need to use an adapter. If you have aero integrated handlebar, you need to use an adapter from the Garmin adapter, or you have to use an adapter for the Garmin system. Yeah, right. So I said earlier, I think the biggest difference between these two bikes is the brakes, which, granted here, I am an amateur. I can't do speeds over 35 kilometers an hour for very long. And if I would have to say what's the one biggest thing that's different between these two bikes, it would definitely have to be the brakes. So the brakes on the Attain are much, much worse. They are a lot worse. But they are good for beginners. So let me go a little bit more in depth about the brakes. The brakes on the Attain, as I said, they're mechanical disc brakes, which means it's a disc brake, but it's not connected to the brake lever hydraulically, but instead it's connected via a cable, which would normally go to standard rim brakes. And this has the effect that, for one, the brakes don't self-adjust after each ride. So after every second or third ride, you have to adjust your brakes manually. It also means that the brakes are much, much weaker. Not sure if that's necessarily because of the cable technology. I only know I tried the brakes. I used them for 17,000 kilometers or 16,000 kilometers. And they have the advantage. They're good for beginners in the sense that you can pull them really, really hard, and you're not gonna skid out. I never managed to skid that bike. You're not gonna fly over the handlebars. And if you want to go into a corner, you can make very fine adjustments. Even if you overshoot a corner, you're too fast, whatever. You can really, really work these brakes without having to have a lot of modulation, without having to have a lot of skill with the brakes. And you can pull these brakes pretty hard, and it's gonna not let you slide out or fly over the handlebars or skid your tires. The brakes are also very nice in the sense that if you want to slow down for a corner, it is really smooth. It's smoothing you into the corner, which is very confidence inspiring. What is really bad about these brakes is if you have to make an emergency stop, or you have to stop for whatever reason, or lose a lot of speed quickly, you have to pull the levers really, really, really hard. And if you ride into in the hood position with the hands on the hoods, it's you have to pull with all your force. You have to use both brakes, front and rear, to make a stop, to make a reasonable stop. One brake just alone is not enough, and that's simply because you don't have enough physical force to pull the levers that hard as you would have to pull them. So with the original handlebars, riding in the drops was really unpleasant because the lever was too high. It was too far away from the hood, from the dropout, so you could barely grip them comfortably. So riding that was out of the question. But as soon as I upgraded my handlebars, as I got my new handlebars, I ride in the drops a lot. And if you are in the drops and you use your full hand to pull the brake lever and brake, it does work, but it's not particularly efficient, and it's not very fast stopping. Now with the Cube Lightning, that has hydraulic disc brakes, which for one means you don't have to adjust them every ride, which now I have ridden that bike for around 700 kilometers, and I don't have any issues with the brake adjustment. Another big advantage of the brakes is that they are simply much more powerful. They're much more powerful. You can brake in the hoods very easily, also just using one brake. Let's say you want to use the other arm for turn signal. You can still brake with just one hand. You can brake with one finger even. It's really powerful brake. If you are in the drops, you can brake really, really hard. And the modulation is fine. Like, it's good modulation. It's not fine, it's good modulation. You can definitely modulate these brakes well. The brake point, everything is clear. And it's not so incredibly powerful that I would say you can't use these as a beginner. I'm just going to say that there is a chance you slide out easier. The first few rides I did with that bike, when I had to slow down quickly from a high speed, I skid the rear tire multiple times simply because I wasn't used to this powerful brake. And I didn't have any problem with that, but I imagine that if you pull too hard, you might even go over the handlebars. At least it's possible with that bike. With the Attain, you can pull as hard as you want. You're not going to fly over the handlebars unless you shift your weight forward purposefully. So yeah, that is the biggest difference between these two bikes. From a riding point of view, from the point of view of how it feels to ride, what the experience is like. Of course, if you look on paper, there's other big differences. The Attain is a aluminum bike versus the Lightning, which is a carbon fiber bike. On the Cube Lightning, pretty much most parts are made out of carbon fiber, which shows the bike, even though it's an aero bike, it is lighter than the Cube Attain by a big margin, which that would lead me to my second point, which is how the bike responds when cycling. I'd say it partially due to the lower weight and partially to the more aerodynamic bike. The bike feels a lot more responsive. The bike feels a lot smoother and faster, and you're just flowing over the road with the Lightning. The Attain, it also feels fast. It's a road bike. It's not a slow city bike or something like that. But it does feel, when you ride the Attain, even if you put down the power, the bike feels like you have this heavy weight under you. You have this heavy block of resistance under you that doesn't go away when you ride. It's always there, omnipresent. Versus with the Lightning, you accelerate to your cruise speed much faster. If you give down power, you accelerate to your sprint speed much faster. You reach your personal limit faster than with the Attain. With the Attain, you're much more likely to reach a bike limit before you reach your personal limit. It means you have to accelerate longer, you have to accelerate harder, you have to, on a hill, you have this constant heavy weight that you're dragging around with you. It's only around 3 kilograms of weight difference on the bikes with all the stuff on it. Where with the Attain, I have lights on the bike always because I ride it often when it's dimmer, or in general, I just generally like to keep my lights on that bike. Versus on the Lightning, I have no light on that bike because I only ride it when it's perfect sunshine and it's bright and it's not going to go dark. So with the Attain, I have bottles, 2 bottles. I have the same on the Lightning. And I have my bike computer, so it's still about 3 kilograms of difference with the lights. Yeah, so the Lightning, it rides smoother, it rides faster, it is more responsive and direct. It doesn't have this feeling of you having a weight that you're dragging around with you. I would say in terms of watts, with the Attain, I would say you have to give it about 20 to 30 watts extra for the same speed, which increases the faster you go, the bigger the difference becomes. If you ride down at, let's say, 20 or 25 kilometers an hour, the difference in feel is still very high, but the difference in watts, I would say, is lesser than if you would go at 40 kilometers an hour, because then the aerodynamical drag becomes more prevalent, which the bike gets even more of an advantage to Lightning. So about other components, the rims on the Lightning are deeper still than the Attain. So the Attain mine has now about 40 to 50 millimeter deep wheels versus the Lightning, which has 65 millimeter deep wheels on the back, I think, and I think 55 on the front, something like that, which also makes a big difference. Another big difference I feel like are the tires, where the tires of the Lightning are the Continental GP 5000 STR, which are a bit newer. When they are brand new, they have incredible grip, amazing. You can really feel the bike gripping the floor when you accelerate hard, when you go on corners, when you do when you go out of the saddle and you push the bike around under you, you can really feel the grip in the floor. Versus the Attain comes stock with, I believe, Conti Ultra Sport 2 tires, which are crap. As soon as I got my first flat tire, I switched them out for better tires. They're not particularly light, they're not particularly durable, they're not that fast, and they don't have great grip. It's just overall a cheap tire. I upgraded them, that was one of my first upgrades. I think I used both Schwalbe Pro 1 and I used Continental GP 5000 on that bike. I prefer the GP 5000. I feel like they roll faster, they're smoother, and they don't feel so heavy. I would say the Schwalbe Pro 1 probably have better grip though, in corners particularly, but I'm not a good corner rider anyway. I don't take my corners very hot, so it doesn't make much of a difference to me. Yeah, so the GP 5000 I feel like have a little bit less biting force on the floor than the 5000 STR. You don't glide as nice over the road, but it's really critics on a high level here. The tires are very similar, and I have to say, my Attain, the tires are not new. They have by now probably 3,000 kilometers on them or something like that. In the Lightning Aero tires are brand new pretty much, so of course they have better grip. You have an integrated aero cockpit on the Lightning, and you have Shimano Ultegra gears. I would say the gears are a medium-sized difference. Like, it's not so different that it completely transforms every aspect of your ride, like for example the brakes, but it's big enough that you notice it. I would say for endurance riding, I like endurance. My longest ride was 300 kilometers event. And on that 300 kilometers event, eventually my hands got tired, it was cold, and I could barely operate the mechanical levers on the Tiagara shifting system. Versus on the on the Lightning, I see no problem at all that you will be able to do that even after humongous long rides, simply because it works electronically. So you have these little buttons you can push, and it shifts the gears with a motor, with an electronical motor, and you don't need any physical force. It's like pressing a button on your keyboard or a controller or something like that. So that means that you can even on super. So that means even on very, very long endurance rides, you can always push the buttons easily and don't have to use force. The difference is bigger if you switch from the big lever. Like for example, you want to switch front chainrings, you want to go into the bigger front chainring, you need to pull the entire lever to the left, which takes a lot more force than downshifting, for example, which is also just a button that you have to press. And same on the other side, but reversed. That's just the nature of mechanical shifting, I guess. It's the same with Campagnolo, for example. You have a button and a lever. The Lightning already comes with a power meter from the factory, where many people say that the power meter on the Lightning is a Shimano power meter and it's not very accurate. I'd say it's accurate enough for amateur. It's only 1% difference or something like that. That means if you have 100 watts, it shows 101 watts, which is 1 watt difference, which is negligible. I mean, if I ride, my watts jump around all the time anyway, from 160 with one stroke to 200 with the next few strokes. It's not always 200, it's 200, and then 1 second later it's 210, then it's 190, then it's 200 again, and 1 watt difference is barely going to be noticeable. It also records left and right power, I believe. I can't use that on my system for some reason with my head unit. It only records one side or one power line. I do know that one big advantage of the power meter on the Lightning, or you could say advantage, is you can charge that power meter. With the Attain, you have to switch out the battery manually every once in a while when it's empty after a few thousand kilometers. But it's really easy to do, so it's really not a big hassle. Battery costs like 50 cents to €2, so not big deal. The shifting on the Lightning is electronical, which means you have to charge that as well every once in a while, but I tend to prefer to stay on the safe side, so I charge it every ride or before every second ride or something like that. The battery is good for a few thousand kilometers as well. The shifters on the Cube Lightning are satellite shifters, which means that you have a battery in the hood from the shifter that can go empty as well, and you have to replace that every once in a while. So there are, I believe, also shifters that are connected with cable, where you just charge up the system and everything is charged, which I would highly prefer. But I guess the satellite shifters are lighter and you'd have less cable to worry about. About the riding position, I would say the Lightning is actually, if you have the spacers installed. So on the website from the Lightning, you always see that the bike is shown without any spacers. But if you order the bike, and pretty much every time I saw the bike in a shop or anywhere, it had spacers and it is delivered with spacers. I got it delivered with spacers. It's like 3 spacers that is installed on the bike by default. If you want them to go away, you have to put them on top of your handlebar or you have to cut the fork the fork steerer tube, you have to cut it if you don't want the chimney on the top of your handlebars. But at first I thought it's really ugly to have these spacers, it looks bad. But now I actually kind of like it, and I think it's the bike is very, very comfortable with the spacers. It's not an extreme aero position by any means, but it still feels very fast, which I found really perplexing at first on the bike. You are high up, you're tall, you're not hunched over too much if you ride in the hoods, but the bike still cuts through the air and is smooth. A bit like a triathlon bike, I would imagine, where you have the handlebars a bit higher, but it's still aerodynamical in total. So it kind of feels like that, I imagine. And if you ride in the drops, it's perfectly manageable. It's very comfortable as well, and you can operate the lever effortlessly even in the drops. So we have talked about the frame, we have talked about the weight, the wheels, the brakes, the shifting. Yeah. When we talk about the Attain, which is the beginner bike for endurance riding, I'd say it's not that much more comfortable. It's actually a little bit less comfortable. I imagine that is due to the bike having a shorter distance from the cockpit to the seat. So you're a little bit, technically more upright, but you're also a bit more hunched in the sense that because the handlebars is closer to you, it's hard to describe. On the Lightning, you're a little bit more with your back stretched out forward. You're a little bit more flat, versus with the Attain, in the same position, the handlebar is closer to your body, so you're naturally not as flat, stretched out, but instead more like hunched, with your back a bit arched. That's not sure if you know if you understand what I'm trying to say here. Like, basically, the Lightning is more comfortable, a little bit more comfortable, and it's not an extreme aero position. I have heard, though, that people that do remove the spacers, if they ride in the drops, it's such an extreme position they can barely look up. Again, I have not tested that, and I'm going to leave the spacers where they are because I think it rides really nicely, and you can really use the bike for endurance purposes as well. Okay. Another big factor, which I almost forgot, which is almost as big as the brakes, I would say for unexperienced riders, it's just as big as a deal as with the brakes, is the stability in the wind. The Attain, with its stock wheels, is incredibly stable in the wind. You get pushed around a little bit, but it's not that bad. The Cube Attain, with the deep aero wheels, a lot worse. You get pushed around in the wind a lot. On group rides, the first few times when it's windy, it's scary. The first time you get pushed a little bit from the wind from the side, it's scary. The first time I did a long endurance event, it was pretty windy, and it was scary. The wind was pushing you around a lot. For that point of view, from that bike's point of view, for that bike, I would, for example, not dare to take off one arm. I used to not dare to take one arm off the handlebar to get something to drink when it's windy, because if the wind pushes you really hard, if you're unlucky, when you have the hand off the handlebar, you might fall. But with the aero wheels, it's so much worse. And now with the Cube Lightning, it's even worse. Like, it's the worst. The first time you ride it in the wind pushes you half a meter to the left or to the right. It's really scary. Or you go fast and there comes a fast truck. What you call it? A fast, like these trucks that haul weights around, like trailers. One of them comes from the other side of the road fast. You go fast down a hill, lots of wind. You really have to lean against it so you not get pushed around. All my friends that have that bike or have aero bikes say it's normal, you get used to it. I say, okay, I tried it. It's not that you can't manage it, you have to lean against it. If you go down a fast ascent, bumpy, windy, you get pushed around a bit. I say it's still bad. It's not pleasant. It's not amazing, but you can get used to it in the sense that you can counter. For example, if you know that truck comes from the left, the wind will push you right. You lean left, and you can counter it. All right. About another big difference about these two bikes is the Attain uses normal inner tubes, or you can, if depending on what rims you put on it, you can put tubeless. I have tried tubeless, but my mechanics always refuse to work with it because it makes a mess if you have to deal with it on road bikes, they say, and I can't do it myself, so I use inner tubes. The Lightning Aero also comes with inner tubes, but it has by stock, by default, it uses, I think, TPE, these yellow inner tubes, orange inner tubes. It's not the standard black rubber one, it's a lighter one, and it uses a car valve. I think it's called Schrader valve, but I'm not sure. It's the thicker one that cars also tend to use, and it's not sticking out of the rim. It's within the rim, and you need an adapter to inflate the tires. And there's no visible valve coming out of the rim, so it's essentially inside of the rim everything, and you have a little bit of a cork, or what you call it, like a piece of plastic essentially, which you put on top of that hole where the valve is reseated in, and you put that plastic on top, and it's a smooth surface. You can't see any valves, which I think looks amazing and is probably aerodynamically advantageous as well. Here's the big difference between the Cube Lightning and the Cube Lightning Pro model, or the top of the line model, which has different spokes. It has aerodynamically optimized spokes, which mine does not have. Also, another difference is the brake discs are black on that top model, and they are silver on my model. Braking overheating, I have not experienced that yet. I have experienced, though, if you brake really hard for really long on that at Lightning, the brakes, they start making weird sound, and it starts to vibrate a lot. But I have not tried other bikes with hydraulic disc brakes, road bikes at least, so I don't know if that's normal. My mountain bike has disc brakes, hydraulical, and it doesn't do that to that extent, but it also does it, so I guess it's normal. It has suspension in the front, which minimizes this effect of rattling, or not rattling, but this deep vibration that you get under heavy braking. So we have talked enough about the brakes. We have talked about frame, we have talked about tires, about aero, we have talked about the wind. The handlebars have no cables. The cables are routed internally. So if you order the bike, you get the bike in a big box. You have to assemble it yourself, but it's assembled for the most part. Like, you have to put the handlebars on, the tires, you have to put them on. And the seat post, not big deal. You need a torque wrench though to do that. As I'm telling you this, I'm well aware that it's probably going to be hard to get that bike, the Cube Lightning. It's always sold out. You might get it, but it's hard to get it. But it's an awesome bike. I can recommend it definitely for endurance as well. It's an aero race bike, but you can use it for endurance. I would actually argue and say that on long rides, the aero Lightning will be faster and more comfortable than the Attain once you are used to it. Let me think about other things. What I wanted to say also is the Attain is not a bad bike either. It's an awesome bike, and for €1,000 you get a pretty good deal. You can really ride that bike for many years, get comfortable with cycling sport. You can find your local group rides, and you will be able to manage it with that bike. I think mine has a really nice color. They used to come in bright, colorful variants. Now the modern range of Attain is pretty tame. Not that crazy color options, but it's the white one I think still looks really nice. The lightning comes also in crazy, colorful paint jobs. It also comes in matte black, more understated paint job, not that flashy. There's something there for everyone. The only issue I really had by building the Cube Lightning Arrow was it was hard to put in the screw for the bottle cage, one of them. The hole was maybe a bit small or whatever, it was seized. You had to put some oil on the screw to get it in the hole. Yeah. Let me think if I forgot something. No, I think that's pretty much it. A pretty comprehensive overview of all the different aspects of both bikes. About flex, frame flex. Yeah. Another big difference between the two bikes is the Attain. If you ride over bumps, potholes, whatever, it has this creaking sound it makes, but always did that even when it was new. And it gives more. It doesn't. If you ride the Cube Lightning over bumps, holes, whatever, there's no give. It's like hard as a rock. You feel everything, like you feel the chain getting janked around or slapping around. That's the only thing that moves pretty much on that bike. There's no creaking, no nothing. And it's really rough. If you have a bad patch of road and you can't avoid it, you have to ride over it. It's really uncomfortable. That is true. The Attain, on the other hand, is still really uncomfortable to go over bumps. Obviously, it's a road bike without much give, but it creaks. It is not as hard. You don't feel the impact on you that much, and you don't hear the chain rattling around that crazy. But yeah. For info, I ride 6 bar on my tires. Some people say that's too much. I like it. I like that feel. If you put 4 in, it feels a bit spongy. I don't like that. Yeah. Yeah, and if you're wondering why didn't I include any footage of me riding both of these bikes, when I clearly have footage on my channel about riding bikes, it's because if you record with the GoPro and you make yourself small and aerodynamical, I tend to have that problem that my legs hit the GoPro on my chest mount, and I have to unnaturally open out my legs, spread my legs around the GoPro so I don't hit it constantly with my legs. And that's really annoying to drive like that, it's a bad habit. And I feel like since I stopped riding with the GoPro, I have already improved a lot. So I don't ride with GoPro anymore. It's annoying. It's really annoying. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess that's it. I hope you had a comprehensive listen. You learned something about these bikes. And yeah, thanks for watching. Take care.